Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Leo. Welcome back to another edition of the Des Photomag podcast. This week, we are joined by our Andres, as always, our founder and curator, and Andy Parker,
Hi.
Venice-based photographer. Sorry, you can say hi. Yes, Venice-based photographer from England, and he's known for his poetic black and white imagery, and he is the creator of Monochrome Venice, aptly named. And he was featured in the first edition of the Des Photo Mag Top Best magazine in 2024 alongside me, and he continues to explore the timeless relationship between
Yeah.
people and the city of Venice through his evocative visual language. In this episode, we're going to talk about his creative process, his connection with the Kunst Depot Gallery, and the philosophy behind Monochrome Venice, which is a fantastic body of work that captures the city as few others do. And I say it myself, living here as a photographer. So, Andres, today we will also be asking Andy some questions. You'll be asking him some questions that have come from our community. We remind everyone that if you would like to ask any questions, you have the chance to do it through sending an email to desphotomag@gmail.com. You better do that before Sunday because that's where we record and we send we upload the podcast. So it'd be best if you do as soon as we announce the next guest. Uh, anyway, and yeah, so please, guys, introduce yourselves. I think Andres, you can begin, and then we will start with the questions to Andy.
Well, this is a pleasure to have Andy. Andy was one of the first guys featured on our magazine, along with you, Leo. I can
Yep.
recall that Andy had a picture of somebody climbing the stairs or something like that. Wasn't that Andy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
It was a black and
black and white monochrome. Yeah, it was a I think a
yeah monochrome.
navy cadet walking in one direction up the steps,
Yeah.
and then a guy walking the other way, carrying some flowers. I think.
Yeah.
I do love that picture, by the way.
Right. That was
It's
it.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is a nice picture, of course. And well, being you have a monochrome Venice website,
That's right. Yes.
so it's obvious that you have a you have a feeling for black and white or monochrome pictures. We have a lot of questions, Andy, here.
Easy
Yeah,
questions, I hope.
I'm really yeah, easy questions, I hope, but I have to choose questions here for you. One of them, of course, is about the black and white.
Sure.
Well, just to finish my introduction, we we started this community 2 or 3 years ago. Leo had a special part on this because he challenged me to do this. I always say that because this is the truth. Every episode that we have a chance to talk about this, I always mention this. We have another uh, on the team. We have other people. I would like to make a special thanks to Luis Pisco, who is one of our curators and has been great influence on all this work that we have been doing. He's probably listening to this podcast right now. He's surely doing. And this is me. I've been into photography for a few years. I'm probably the oldest one here, looking at the pictures. But I try to keep myself young and up to date on everything. So thanks for being with us, for being part of our community, Andy. This is your
Oh, thank you.
space for sharing your work and promoting it. So this is what we are here for. And talent over ego always. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. No, thanks very much. I
Back to
mean,
you, Leo.
Well,
thanks.
I think, yeah, Andy, you have the floor. Please introduce yourself. Tell us about your journey, how you got to Venice from England, how long you've been here, what have you been doing, and yeah, you're up.
Okay. Thanks very much. Well, thanks, guys. Yeah. Thanks, Leo, for the invite, and Andres also for the invite, and allow me to come onto the platform. Yeah, as you guys said, I think I was probably one of the early submitters to the Des Instagram site, but which I found through Leo. So he's the one to thank for that one. But yeah, as you say, I sort of manage a website. Monochrome Venice is what is the tag, which runs on Instagram. It's got its own website as well. And for me, yeah, black and white is something fundamental for me. I've been shooting for I don't know how long, many years. But I mean, I started when I was a kid with a camera. I had a Minolta, SLR when I was a kid, and shot lots of black and white film, mainly landscapes and animals and plants and all sorts, seascapes, all sorts of things, but generally sort of nature. And the black and white is just something that stayed with me throughout. And I came to Venice back in 2009, I think. So I've been here on and off since then. Came here for amore, obviously, love. My wife brought me over, kicking and screaming. So we actually met in Madrid. I was staying in Madrid at the time, and we met in Madrid. And before too long, she brought me over to Venice, reluctantly. But I mean, Venice is what, like everybody says. I mean, it's a beautiful place, and for me, being a black and white photographer, I just sort of fell in love with the aesthetics of the place, and started shooting from the moment I arrived. All the classic scenes, gondolas, gondolieres, all the touristy stuff. So, but hopefully it has progressed from that. So yeah, I mean that's how long I've been out. I mean, it's not the day job. My day job is teaching English. I do that to pay the mortgage, and to pay the rent. And so the photography is a side hustle, and I use the gaps I have between lessons and the commute times I have coming into Venice every day to shoot as much as possible. And I'm probably shooting, not quite every day, but most days. I've always got camera in hand, looking for something. And so the Monochrome Venice idea has kind of evolved quite organically from the early days, and building up a great archive of material, which I'm now kind of looking back across and trying to promote through different projects. I think that's probably where I am right now. So I'm perhaps shooting a little less these days, a bit more selectively, but sort of dipping back into the archive and sort of dragging out projects which I may have started but not finished, or projects which I'd never even thought of in the early days, which I'm now sort of discovering.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a bit more about these projects? You got any examples? I mean, you just, I mean, we just met at your last exhibition. Why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, so the last, well, I've had 3 exhibitions now in the space of like 18 months, which has been kind of mind blowing and a bit of a whirlwind. Yeah, so I mean, I kicked off with looking at the Venice fog. I mean, the Venice fog for me is something that makes Venice unique. You see Venice in a whole new light when the fog descends. I mean, the city naturally falls into sort of a monochrome state, so it's not difficult to take shots which are atmospheric and timeless when the fog descends. And I realized I'd amassed loads of fog pictures, and in Venice they call the fog caigo in the local Venetian dialect. So I compiled these images together. That kind of coincided just prior to that. I was contacted by the gallery space, the Kunstdepot gallery in Venice, who had seen my other types of work and had actually bought some prints from me from the website. So through that, we started talking about getting these Caigo shots, the Venice fog shots, out into the public and putting together an exhibition. That was my first solo exhibition, so it was quite a daunting project and prospect, but yeah, I realized I had a lot of material to get through and to edit. So with the Kunstdepot gallery, we curated 30 odd shots, 30, 40 shots, which went on display. And it, yeah, went down very well. That led on to a second exhibition, which was called the Venice Street Geometry, which focused more on the harsh light that you get in Venice and looking at geometric shapes which are formed from the light and the shade and the shadows and how it combines with the architecture and the bridge work and the canals and capturing maybe human elements within the geometry. So that I held that earlier in this year, in February this year. And yeah, I've just finished this trio of shows with something called Biennale People, which was not connected to the Biennale, but was a street photography project looking at people, looking at the artworks and installations that you find in the Venice art and Venice architecture Biennale. So 3 completely different projects. But all held in with Kunstdepot Gallery and all being very successful, I'm pleased to say. And yeah, now I'm having
good. Well, just as I said before, we have quite a few questions from our community, and since you mentioned the fog, let me go over because we have questions from all kinds of things. We have a question here specifically about the fog. It's from Sophie Lane, London, UK. So it's one of your people, one of our community members that is also British. And she says, your Venetian fog series is one of the most atmospheric bodies of work I've seen on monochromvenice.com. The fog transforms Venice into something mysterious and abstract. When you shoot in these conditions, what are you trying to capture? The place, the mood, or the emotion? And do you approach fog differently from your regular street and architectural work, in specifically talking about techniques? Easy question, Andy.
Yeah,
this is one of the questions that you said.
A nice easy.
This is
question.
easy.
Well, thank you very much, Sophie. I mean, that's really flattering, and that's amazing that that you've taken the time to look at my work and ask the question. So thanks so much. In terms of the first part of the question, it's always mood. I think I'm always feeling something when I'm in that situation. There's always a mood, and I'm trying to capture that mood. It's the emotion of that moment. Particularly in the thick, dense Caigo fogs, you do really feel a sense of isolation almost, because you don't see anything, you don't hear anything. There's this stillness and quiet that descends. And so wherever I am at that point, I try to, capture the mood. Inevitably, it tends to be sort of maybe along a waterfront, along the San Marco waterfront, or in St. Mark's Square, or somewhere quite iconic. But yeah, capturing the mood. In terms of technique, that's an interesting one. I think tends to be much brighter when you got the fog. So perhaps I am adjusting for that extra brightness. I'm knocking. And maybe increasing the shutter or knocking down the aperture or something, increasing the aperture to counteract that sort of brightness, because I'm trying to bring the depth of shadow out
Mhm.
of the fog. Um,
It's funny you mentioning that because uh, one of the one of the things that I believe is difficult. And I'm just talking about this because we have all kinds of uh, members in our community, and when you go out and trying to shoot in snow, if you believe the sensor, you will always underexpose the image. So the fogginess that you want to capture when you go out,
yeah,
uh, if you have to trust your instincts better than your sensor
sure.
in the camera. Yeah.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, I tend to have the camera set on manual, not necessarily fully manual. Sometimes, the ISO is set on auto, but in those situations, then I sort of use the compensation dial to sort of underexpose a little bit to counteract that brightness. Exactly as you say, like in a snowy situation, it tends to sort of blow
Yeah.
out quite a lot.
By the way, since you mentioned manual, we had on the last issue of the no, second quarter magazine, we had an editorial about going manually on shooting,
Mm.
and it's quite interesting. If you and your audience didn't have a chance to look over, just do it. It's quite interesting. Okay, it's with you again, Leo. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, living in Venice, I've had my share of experience with the Caigo. I mean, you can see one of the pictures up here, and yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It is a matter of compensating for a different condition. It's definitely more much brighter, and yeah, you can definitely tighten up the aperture because the softness is still there. Even if you make it all sharp, it's just not sharp anyway. So
Yeah.
it does work out. Um,
I mean,
but
on that same theme, I don't worry too much about ISO either, because I quite like a little bit of noise
oh yeah,
creeping into the images. So even if your ISO shoots up to maybe 800 or 1600, I mean, it's not an issue. I'd rather compensate in other ways if possible. But
yeah. I just want to another thing I want to ask you. Your commitment to black and white is impressive. I mean, I recall having a conversation with you about how you shoot, because we both shoot a lot of black and white, but you definitely shoot a lot more than I do. And you shoot black and white straight from the camera, even though you don't have a black and white only camera. You have a camera that's perfectly capable of capturing the entire spectrum of light, but you choose not to. And I am, I know why you do it, but I think our listeners also wonder why you do it. So why don't you tell us about it?
well, it is a good question. I mean, it's something that I have thought about, because it is something fundamental. I don't really think too much about it. It just seems very natural. But I think at the end of the day, I like shooting pictures in the sort of simplest way possible. I don't like too much fuss. I don't like too much clutter, and color often distracts me. And to be honest, I don't feel I'm a very good color photographer, because I shoot in color and then I'm sure the color I shot is not reflected the same on the screen. And so then I'm fiddling with it, I'm changing it, tone, tonality, whatever. And in the end, I just go around in circles. And uh, I see more. Obviously, I'm not colorblind, but I see more in black and white. I visualize in black and white. Um, and I find also with sort of the geometry aspects, the black and white extenuates the geometry and the textures. And so I'm looking through the color. I'm looking for texture of brickwork or of stonework, or texture of the water surface, or whatever. So I think it sort of breaks it. The black and white breaks it down to its simplest forms. Um, it it yeah, highlights, as I say, the geometry. It also adds more emotion in my view. And it also adds that abstractness, which I'm always seeking, because the viewer has to work a little bit more with black and white. I'm not just telling you exactly how it was. I'm telling you how I interpreted that scene. And so you have to then, try and get into my mindset or take something out of it in your own way, and maybe imagine the color that was there. Maybe the colors are obvious, maybe they're not. But for me, yeah, I mean, I love color photography. I wish I could do color photography better, but I've been doing black and white now so long, it's quite difficult to sort of switch. And with monochrome Venice, I'd have to change the name and everything.
Polychrome Venice. Come on.
Multichrome, yeah, exactly.
Even though you have a link there with some of your color pictures.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, yes, I have, because I'm conscious of this fact that not everybody sort of appreciates the same level of black and white as I do. I have put a little link, which does show some Venice in color, but it's kind of hidden away in the background.
Well, this brings me again to the editorial of this third edition, this third quarter edition, because the editorial is about color of authorship.
Hmm.
I'll be sending it to you, Andy.
Yeah, please do.
Of course, we will get the magazine, but I would like to hear you on that, because it's about, because people always refer to black and white as different than a colored photo, and black and white are also color. So
Yeah.
it's a choice among the spectrums of colors that you have to express yourself. So I think you will enjoy the editorial. You let me know in the future.
Thanks.
But I have questions, and many questions here, and I have one single email with 3 questions.
Wow.
And this is from yeah,
That's not my mum, is it?
yeah, this is easy, Andy. Get ready. This is from Alan Jackson from Gresham, Oregon, United States of America. So this is what he's saying. Hello, Andres. I have the following questions for Andy. Please feel free to use any or all of them as you see fit. Well, I will start with the first one, and if you feel comfortable, if you think this is easy, Andy, you let me know, and I'll follow on with the other ones. Well, the first one is explain more in depth about your recent posting on streetlights. Expand on your choices about gear, locations, technique, etc., and night photography in Venice. I'll move to the second question later once you have this one answered. Okay, Andy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, thanks for the questions and for looking at the images. I mean, yeah, the night photography again is again taken from looking through the archive. In fact, I was looking at November last year, and realized I think I'd posted maybe 1 or 2, but I hadn't sort of delved through all of them. So I basically I took 5 or 6 images for Instagram post. Thinking, looking at this nighttime nocturnal Venice street lamp project, and in terms of locations and situations, well, there's a variety. I mean, I think at that time I was shooting a lot manually, with I mean completely manually, with the X-T5, the Fujifilm X-T5, but fitted with a manual Pentax lens, which was one of the fastest primes I have, and it's still pretty sharp. But you need to sort of keep still. You need to find your composition and compose well with that. But I find that through nighttime imagery, going fully manual with those manual focus lenses helps no end. I mean, with the autofocus, you're jumping all over the place if it finds it at all.
Yep.
And so you're then also compensating for the brightness of the lamp, but still trying to get the subjects illuminated. I'm racking my brains a little bit to how the settings I had for those, but yeah, but to be honest, it was all manual. Yeah, and adjusting compensation for the brightness of the lamp. I think in post I did bring out a little bit of the shadow to reveal more of the character, and I'm not afraid to do that. I sort of I do shoot as one should really for digital, shoot for the highlights, and then you bring out the shadows in post,
That's it.
and so I'm sure that um, that technique was used. In terms of locations, well, they're taken on different nights, different situations, different locations. But I think I was just looking for like individual characters or couples that were offering some kind of narrative, be it mysterious, be it romantic, some kind of intrigue. I liked the. I'm a big fan of the music, Dire Straits and Martin Knopfler's music, and so
Me too.
I took that amazing lyric of finding a convenient streetlight from Romeo and Juliet, and took that idea um, with towards posting these images and trying to find some kind of narrative that could be pulled out from them. I'm not sure if that answers the question completely, but
Well, I think it does. And I'm glad you brought up the subject because people think that night photography is like day photography, and it's not. There's a lot of trade-offs that you have to make when you go out shooting at night. And one special thing that you mentioned is about autofocus. You just know why you can do that, at least with some good, when you expect good results, because it doesn't work. So
Mhm.
most of the time it doesn't work. Well, let's go for the second question from
yeah.
Alan Jackson. Photographing for fog and long exposures in Venice. What works and what to avoid, if anything?
Dirty sensors. Avoid a dirty sensor because it's the bane of any long exposure work. You know, Lightroom have just recently upgraded to have this AI, dust removal, which is a godsend. So it can automatically remove uh, dust and stains from the sensor. So having a clean sensor, but uh, yeah, I mean, it's about finding the right location, finding something that's interesting in terms of foreground as well as background. Um, for the sort of long exposure stuff, then if I'm shooting during the day, then I've got a neutral density filter which I use 1000 neutral density filter, which really shuts out virtually all the light, and so I'm reducing the shutter speed to seconds, and then like 30 seconds, and so it's then a question of experimentation of what looks good, what works, what's the effect I'm trying to get. I shoot some water long exposure, but I also try to shoot people moving. I've got sort of another project in the background, which is sort of looking at the flow of people coming through Venice, like sort of contextual, the flooding of Venice, but looking at people movement. And so sometimes 30 seconds is too long. It washes it all out. Sometimes, you have to experiment with shutter speeds. But yeah, finding a location, I don't tend to carry a tripod, but I have a little mini tripod. I don't have it here, which I tend to sit on, walls and the tops of bridges and try and find those kind of focal points. I don't carry tripods around too much because, like I said before, I don't like fuss. I carry minimal kit, something that all slots into a backpack. And so, yeah, again, I'm not sure if I've answered the question, but
Yes,
that's kind of my approach when it comes to long exposure.
and this brought us to the third and last questions. I would like to make a point on one of your answers. One thing that you mentioned on your answer. It's about AI. We had a funny situation this week on the curation side here of the magazine. about AI, and it's so complicated, especially in black and white. We see so many pictures now generated by AI.
Yeah.
There are fake pictures, actually. Uh, we're not talking about getting the dust out of the sensor that you mentioned. It's really a generated image, and trying to figure out it's every day more complicated. We took one picture out of the timeline because the curation first chose one of the images that we put on the timeline, and later we reviewing that we saw, but this is not a real photo. This is AI generated, and it's still on hold because we are still trying to figure out if this was an image
Mm.
really taken by a photographer or it was AI generated. This is going to be a subject for us to treat in the future. Well, the when you mentioned location, it brought me up to the third question from Alan Jackson. Favorite areas to photograph outside of the tourist areas in Venice? What are
Um,
those?
outside the tourist areas, so I tend to go around Castello quite a lot. Castello is still quite a residential area. It's one of those sort of places have which has the sort of iconic washing lines that drape between the buildings, cover the streets. So you've got some nice shadow coming from sort of washing hanging out. And there tends to be quiet, tends to be fewer tourists. You get maybe individuals out for a stroll. So Castello, yeah, areas of sort of Canareggio also. Um, but also, I mean, even sort of popular tourist areas have hidden nooks and crannies. So, I mean, the other day I was in Dossoduro, which is quite a busy area, particularly along the Zattere, which is sort of on the waterfront. It's always popular with people toing and throwing. And I discovered, a couple of streets parallel to that. It was like deadly quiet, and so the canals there were sort of perfectly uh, calm, no movement in the water. The reflections were amazing. I managed to grab a couple of shots, kind of abstract gondola images, but reflected in the water, which I may post in the future. But yeah, I think it's just a question of not necessarily finding neighborhoods which are less busy, but just going off, the main thoroughfare and not being afraid to sort of go down a few dead ends and blind alleys. Um, because there are a lot. I mean, people tend to go to the same sort of places. But in terms of sort of areas, yeah, Castello and sort of down towards St Helena and those kind of areas to the east of the sort of the main thoroughfare, avoiding sort of San Marco.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Maybe
I
Leo knows more places. I don't know.
no, I agree completely. I mean, I live in Cannaregio, and I love living here because it's so quiet, and it's um, it's easier to find lonely subjects like we like to take, and
Sure.
um, that actually brings me to I've been thinking about something you said earlier, how when you came over to Venice the first time, and you kind of got the um, uh, the easy pictures out of the way, the obvious ones. And I found it funny because I just had this conversation recently with someone else, and I said, I keep seeing a lot of big photographers, a lot of these more famous photographers that come to Venice, and living here, I've realized, and shooting pictures here, I've realized that a lot of the pictures that they're taking are very similar to the ones that I was taking when I moved here. And I feel like when you live, and I think this is probably true for everywhere, but I've only experienced it with Venice. But when you live somewhere and you get to see all the little things, and you get to see it every day and shoot it every day, thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures, you kind of get those out of the way, and you have to do that before you can start taking the really interesting stuff. And it's really
Well,
difficult
interesting
for,
point. Yeah.
and
Yeah, no.
that goes into like travel photography, right? Because
Mhm.
well, that's not your thing. You're in Venice, and I think that's kind of how you and well, I like to think I as well, but that's how people who live, and you've lived here for much longer than I have, almost as long as I've been alive. So, um,
See how young he
Yeah,
is?
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
thanks for reminding us about that. Yeah.
But that I think gives you an edge.
Just reminds us that we are old.
Yeah.
No, that definitely gives you an edge. You've got experience, and you have a, you know, you've seen Venice from all the perspectives that there are. And, I think that a lot of these, it makes it difficult for a travel photographer to make something new and interesting and original when you have someone like you who's been here for over a decade and has had that time to refine and find places and see things that, you know, even moments that just happen once
Mm,
and can't repeat. To get those, you have to be here every day and go to the same place every day, and eventually it happens. But if you're not here every day, you're not going to get it.
sure. Yeah.
And I
No,
wonder
it's, yeah,
if you feel that way.
yeah, no, it's a good point. And I don't know if if you're talking about the same photographer I saw online who a famous photographer who'd been to Venice recently and was posting really cheesy gondola shots and
I
pretty
don't want to
girls in
make any.
dresses.
We don't make any names. We don't make any names.
We're
But
not making any names, no, no.
Yeah.
But I thought you can do better than this. You
yeah.
you are this guy or girl. It's not who who has made a good name for themselves, and they're resorting to real sort of cliched images of Venice for some reason. I don't know. Maybe they enjoy it, but yeah, I mean, there's a certain sort of type of image that Venice conjures in the mind, and yeah, sometimes you have to get those out of the way before you can sort of look beneath the surface a little bit. I think I have done that. I don't think I tend not to shoot obvious things anymore, but sometimes I do feel I can understand the attraction of shooting sort of the
It is
obvious.
compelling.
But yeah.
Yeah.
um
Especially if it's the first time that you see it, of course.
yeah, of course, yeah, exactly, yes.
But
Yeah, no, that's true. But I think I wouldn't class myself as a travel photographer, and I wouldn't say that my images would work in a travel photography
no,
context. I wouldn't
exactly,
say that.
that's
Yeah,
what I mean. And but do you think? Because this is what's puzzling me. Do you think this applies to everywhere? Because does that make travel photography kind of redundant? Because you might as well
no,
just have a person from the place take the pictures, because they will inevitably be the best ones at taking pictures of that place.
I don't know. I think no. I think travel photography is a highly sought after and legitimate, area of photography because I think you need that external view when you're visiting places so that you appeal to other people who are visiting those
Right.
places. If you're going, if I were shooting for a travel mag or whatever, then I'd probably be too subtle with my images or I'd be going too far, underneath that veneer that they're looking for. So, because I mean, I try to avoid the tourist scenes, but as a travel photographer, you would need to perhaps focus on those travel scenes, on those tourist scenes, um, to try and sort of build a connection with potential tourists. I guess. Um, so yeah, I think if I visit new places, I'm also drawn to sort of the obvious sites. Go to Rome, you shoot the Colosseum. Once at least, anyway.
Yep. But I mean, wouldn't you say that because I mean, I'm not trying to imply anything. I love travel
Mm,
photography. I'm not I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
sure, sure.
But uh, I'm still, I ask myself these questions, and I want to ask them to you too, because I think you'd have a good
Hmm.
insight in them, and I think they're quite interesting for the community, because we have travel photographers that part of the community, and I think they'd be happy to hear your opinion as well. Because you're quite unique as a photographer. I think most people who do photography aspire to be in some way a travel photographer. They want to go around and see things. And I think that the main goal, usually, at least for me, when I travel, is to see things that are, as you were saying, under the surface. Is not to see the things that everyone else sees or show people things that they can just see anywhere else. Otherwise,
Mhm.
that's pointless. Because, why take an image that already exists in thousands and thousands of iterations?
Sure.
Uh,
I think when I started shooting in Venice, and probably around about 2008, 2009, when I started using more digital camera and being more experimental with what I was shooting, I think I was shooting more in a sort of documentary reportage style of capturing the moment of what was happening in front of me at that time, rather than worrying about um, yeah, getting good sort of tourist shots. I've never seen myself as a travel photographer, and yeah, obviously the idea of traveling the world taking photos of hot tourist hotspots would be appealing. I don't think that's I wouldn't find that very satisfying as a job in terms of my photography. I'd see it as a commercial gig, but then I'd go off and do my own sort of personal projects on the side. Um, yeah, so um, yeah, I kind of lost the thread of what the question was.
I'd like to make a point on this. I think there's a fresh look that the tourist or the traveler gets when he approaches a scene where he's never been or a place where he has never been. And that freshness is what makes it cheesy, like you said, Andy, sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah, because for, when you are really out to make photos, the more you know the place, the better your creative uh, assessment of the place is.
Hmm.
Uh, well, that's just it, I think. But of course, there's a place for the travel
yeah,
photographers
yeah, and I do
everywhere.
want to make a note. Also, I like the fact that you made a correction there. You first said tourist and then you said traveler, and I do think there's a difference
Yeah,
between how
there is
you
a
approach
Yeah, yeah.
traveling and being a
yeah,
tourist and a traveler. And I think
Mm.
that's what makes a travel photographer different from a tourist.
Yes, no,
Um,
sure, yeah.
yeah.
and also, yeah, it's very. I think the traveling and photography are very intertwined. I want to make a quick shout out to my good friend Mimo, who is doing very important work in Kenya right now. She lives in Germany now. She's traveled all the way to Kenya to do humanitarian work as a photographer, and I think it's wonderful. And I do want to mention that. And I really appreciate the work that people who travel and do photography do because it is extremely important.
Sure.
Um,
This comes into photojournalism
yeah,
as
exactly.
it's rather than shooting necessarily for travel publications, but um, people travel for all sorts of reasons and shoot for all sorts of reasons. I mean, for me, um, there needs to be some kind of narrative. There needs to be some kind of story that I'm tapping into. And if I'm just taking pictures of a beautiful building, that is not enough for me. In Venice at least. Maybe I'll go to a new place and shoot a few, you know, travel shots or tourist shots like that on the iPhone. But it'd just be as a sort of a memory of the event rather than sort of a in-depth photo project.
Yeah. So there's a, I mean, I don't want to say that way, but like a shallowness to it. I think because I think your photography is characterized by a certain depth, and if if a picture isn't worthy of your camera, it's probably not deep enough. But anyway, there is something that we do need to mention now before we close because we are running out of time. Just wanted to remind everyone that if you haven't done so yet, this is a good time to get yourself a copy of the third quarter edition of the Top Best magazine. And in the special issue, we are going to have a print drop which is a new thing we're doing, where a printed photo of the last magazine cover will be sent to you uh, as with the magazine for free. You can also buy it separately for €10, and in this case, it will be Andreas Geisinger, our last guest. Fantastic guy and an amazing photographer as well. So definitely go check out the last interview if you haven't done so yet. And do get yourself a copy of the third quarter Top Best magazine, desphotomag.com. Des underscore 10 off to get yourself 10% discount on any order. And also get yourself a free print along with it. Now, back to you, Andres. I believe we have another question from our dear community.
Yes, yes, we do. And this is easy also.
Mm.
This is from James from Brighton, UK. I noticed your collaboration, James W. I noticed your collaboration with Venezia Kunstdepot. How has working with a gallery influenced your artistic growth? Do they push you in new directions or help you refine what you already do?
Yeah, good question. Thanks, James. Yeah, basically, like I mentioned before, so that it's a very collaborative approach. We sort of talk about projects together, and I sort of pitch some ideas and some images, and they come back with various sort of amendments and ideas. Um, and yeah, sometimes um, you know images are edited out, curated, and sometimes they're left in, which I've chosen. But in terms of pushing me, it's making me think more about what works well in terms of on print, because what works well on the screen or on Instagram is not doesn't necessarily work well on the wall, and very often something that looks good, on the screen prints out terribly. And so, sort of having another perspective to see work printed on the wall is really useful in terms of the sort of editing process and the curating process. And so I do tend to sort of print more than I need, and then do the sort of final sort of selection in the gallery. But I mean, the relationship is very collaborative, and it's a two-way conversation. And so it's certainly, if you get the opportunity to work with any gallery and get the opportunity to put on a show, I highly recommend it for any photographer, because it does sort of push you to select your best work. It does push you to think about what you're trying to say, what's the narrative you're trying to say in the exhibition. To be honest, I mean, putting on a show and being in the gallery, meeting people, is probably better than 6 months on Instagram in terms of building, contacts and getting feedback, and just being involved in photographic discussions, and people ask you all sorts of questions. I mean, like today, I've had all these new questions, not some easy, some not so easy. But in the gallery, I get the same, and you constantly having to think, oh yeah, what did I do? Why did I do it? What was I trying to say? What was I trying to show? And so it does push you to really analyze what it is you're shooting and why you're doing it, and I think it overall, it then hones your, subconsciously at least, it hones your sort of future shooting, and maybe you're a bit more selective, a bit more you're sort of editing in your mind while you're shooting what would look good on a gallery wall, what wouldn't, that kind of thing. But no, certainly um, a very good sort of relationship, and yeah, if you get opportunity to exhibit in any way, then I'd go for it. I've been very fortunate that they found me. I didn't go looking for this gallery space, but they found me initially, and so we've then cultivated the relationship from that. In the past, I've also sort of exhibited a little bit in bars and cafes, and even that experience has been highly beneficial, even if I weren't there all the time to address questions. But just just getting your images out to the general public is great. And yeah, Instagram has its advantages. There are a lot of distractors as well, but there's no sort of substitute to actually printing and getting stuff out on the wall.
Okay. Well, it reminds me of one thing that I like to mention. I think it's very much related to this. I have one difficulty about sequencing, making the sequence of photos, and people in gallery they're so good on that.
Sometimes.
You show the
Yeah.
yeah, you show them the pictures, and you say, no, this has to come first, and this is the second, this is the third.
Yeah.
I'm really bad on this.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I have Luis Pisco doing that for me because he's always the one that it's important to have a different opinion, and galleries do that.
Sure.
And do that to your work. Yeah.
I mean, without the gallery input, I would perhaps put all the images in maybe chronological order because
Yeah,
I know,
of course.
I know
Yeah.
when I shot them, but they see other connections. They say, "Oh no, the shape of that goes with this," and blah, 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 or the narrative.
This talks to this. There's one. That,
Yeah, let's eliminate
Yeah.
that one in the middle, which is a distraction. So it really sort of throws it open, and because they're looking at it objectively without your emotional knowledge of how or when you took the photo, then that's a huge advantage in terms of sort of the editing process.
Yeah, it's almost like curation is a whole job in itself.
It is indeed. Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, I think we have already taken enough of your time. It has been quite a pleasant and well, yeah, very pleasant conversation, I would say. I hope
Thank
you
you.
had a good time, and I hope that our listeners did as well. Andres, if you want to have last remarks.
Oh yeah. Well, we hope everybody that's listening and the ones that are going to listen to this podcast, and we are also on YouTube. Just a reminder, we have a channel now there. We hope you had enjoyed the conversation, and we are always eager to know your feedback. So if you have enough time, just send us your comments on this. You can do that by email or just commenting on the podcast itself. Okay, Andy, thank you for coming. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for being with us. Thank you for being part of the community. We hope to have you many more times in the future.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
Congratulations. We love your work.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks very
No,
much
we
for
do.
having me on. It's been
Yeah.
amazing experience.
Actually, I can prove how much I love your work.
There we go.
For our friends on YouTube, I just showed, well, friends on YouTube just saw it, but friends on Spotify, I just showed a print of Andy that I purchased myself. And yes, so
My number one fan.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
don't forget when you get famous.
You have
Count
many
them.
fans in our community, Andy.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us, Andy, Andres, as always. You guys have a wonderful evening. Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye bye.
Bye bye.